Mayor Brandon Johnson was sworn in as the 57th mayor of Chicago on May 15, 2023. His journey to leadership began in the classroom as a public school teacher, where he saw firsthand how school closures, unemployment, and gun violence affected his students and their communities. He became an organizer with the Chicago Teachers Union, leading multiracial coalitions to defend neighborhood schools, challenge high-stakes testing, and expand state funding. Mayor Johnson made his mark by championing transformative policies. He led the passage of the Just Housing Ordinance, which banned housing discrimination against formerly incarcerated individuals and secured legal representation for immigrants facing deportation. During the 2020 civil uprisings, he spearheaded the budget for Black lives, pushing for vital investments in healthcare, transportation, and affordable housing. Mayor Johnson strives to drive impactful change for the people of Chicago, leading with a vision rooted in equity, justice, and opportunity for all. Today's Waymaker Men Summit discussion, under the banner of leadership in action, welcomes Mayor Brandon Johnson.
You know, you take a lot of heat from a lot of different places, a lot of different people. We were all on edge about the Democratic National Convention being here in Chicago. And you and your team did an amazing job, You were a solution. You lived up to the hype. Everybody was on edge. Everybody was nervous. Everybody was saying, you know, if it ain't the people inside the city, it's going to be the people coming from outside the city to disrupt the DNC. You stood up, lived up, and you guys delivered. So congratulations.
Thank you.
We appreciate that. And, you know, you saved our rep big time, bro.
Well, you know, listen, you know, 1968, you know, was a very, you know, needless to say, a tumultuous time in our nation's history. And the disruption that was taking place had everything to do with American policy, domestic and foreign, that was causing not only continuous pain to descendants of slaves, but then you, as a nation, decided to care more about foreign affairs than the existence and the struggle for Black folks in America. I just want people to understand the context, right? Because there were obviously elements of 1968 that were brutal, the way the police department engaged and interacted, but you also had political leadership at the time that was very clear about shooting and killing Black folks and torturing Black folks. Understand that that resistance that folks were concerned about, I made it very clear that we have to protect the fundamental right to protest in this country, because without protest, this room does not exist. And there was a way in which we protect the First Amendment right, which is tantamount to our democracy, while also making sure that we had a vibrant, exciting convention that would ultimately make history, where a Black man was able to host a big party for a Black woman to become the first Black woman president in the history of the United States of America. But of course, Chicago was going to live up to the hype.
So, Brother Johnson, how did you guys put that together? I mean, you know, I'm a leader, and that's hard on a small scale, but you had to get a whole city ready. Every department had to be ready. You had to work with outside agencies. How did you guys put that together?
Well, I use very basic principles. So look at it this way. You know what every Black house had in common on Saturday mornings? We were cleaning up, right? Music, right? Cleaning the music. Thank you. We got to add the music part to it. And I approached this the way my father, my mother approached how we prepare for the week, how we prepare for company. And every single aspect, from the bathroom to the basement to the yard to the windows, I just got triggered again, y'all. I'm just, that was the same approach that I took, from transportation to public safety, to the airports, to streets and sanitation, to community engagement. Everybody had an assignment. It was my responsibility and job to not only provide the vision, but to make sure that I put other people in charge to fulfill the assignment. So, of course, in our home on Saturday mornings, that's usually your oldest sibling, right? And so the chief operations officer, may my brother rest in peace, made sure as Daddy A or Big Brother that the assignments that mom and dad laid out, somebody also had to monitor and make sure that people remained engaged. So the assignments were given, and then our chief operations officer, who is a brother, who won't get the attention that I get, but it was my chief operations officer that understood my vision to make sure that every single corner of this city, every single responsibility, every single department, from police and fire to streets and sanitation to environmental justice, all of it, that vision was carried out. And we met on a regular basis to ensure that people were living up to the expectations that the people of Chicago, quite frankly, the people of the world wanted to see us, carry out. So it's definitely a team effort, but it really requires strong, firm, dedicated leadership and vision to make sure you put the right people in charge to carry out that vision. And that's really what is fundamental to my leadership. Leadership recognizes other leadership and refuse to be intimidated by other leadership. In order for Michael Jordan to become the greatest of all time, he needed Scotty, he needed Horace, he needed Dennis, he needed Phil. And so yes, I'm MJ. I'm the greatest freaking mayor of all time. Yeah. I just did that and realized I was doing.
So you're approaching, I think, like 18 months on the job.
16 months.
16 months on the job.
So 998 more days to go in my administration for the first term. Not that a brother's counting.
So how's it going, in your opinion?
That's a very good question. First of all, let me just say a couple of things that I'm really excited about. The first 15 months in office, $20 billion of new investments in the city of Chicago under my leadership. No other administration can say that within the first 15 months, they delivered $20 billion. Here's what it looks like. What are the numbers? So $7 billion from Michael and Denny, Michael Reinsdorf and Denny Wirtz, doing more development on the west side around the United Center. Those families don't put another $7 billion for economic development in a city that they don't believe is growing. We have a multi-billion-dollar deal on the southeast side of Chicago. You all know the history there. The steel mill was there. And when it went away 32 years ago and it sucked the life out of that community, no other administration has been able to deliver and repurpose that entire land. Well, we have a brand new industry called quantum computing. We'll be the first city, the first state in the country to have this new form of technology that ultimately will design and solve problems in a way that are far faster than any other computer that has even been imagined. We're talking about multi-billion dollars for the southeast side of Chicago. And then the one that I'm really proud of, there's actually two more. $1.25 billion bond investment for neighborhood and economic development to build homes and to expand small businesses. It's the largest investment for neighborhood and economic development in the history of Chicago. And that happened within the first 15 months of my administration. Here's the one that I'm really excited about. It got a little bit of attention, but the airports are the strong economic engine for the entire region, O'Hare being chief amongst the two, one of the busiest airports in America. Well, we have some expansion that's happening there. And this expansion requires a construction company. Boa Construction, NOSA, Westsider. He's the first prime Black construction company to receive a major airport deal for expansion in the history of America.
Come on now.
Right here on the west side.
Come on now. Won't he do it?
We've hired 27,763 young people for summer jobs. That's a 32% increase since I've been in office. We reopened a mental health clinic in Roseland that was closed by the two previous administrations ago. adding more behavioral health care services on the Lower West Side at the UIC Clinic and at the Legler Library and West Garfield Park. And then on top of all of that, what I'm, really proud of in these first, 15 months is, look, when I got in office, and I just want to just set the record straight, we do know that the new arrivals were arriving in Chicago before I was mayor, right? Y'all know that, right? Y'all do know that they were sleeping on floors in police districts before I was mayor. Y'all do know that, right? Are they sleeping on floors on police districts? No. Are there buses coming to the city of Chicago? Nope. Have we saved taxpayer dollars over $200 million and brought the state and the county together to respond to a crisis that required federal intervention, and they didn't do it, but somehow the black man managed to do something that the federal government's responsibility, they abdicated their responsibility. Not only did we manage a crisis, but we have put hundreds of millions and billions of dollars on the west and south sides of the city of Chicago. In the first 15 months in office, I am doing quite well.
Come on now, you got my vote. You got my game. Y'all better show some love.
Thank you. I knew those Sox fans would come back and visit.
Yeah, he came on back there and show.
The man
Chin his head off.
it's all like you're running a little bit over, all right? It's about seconds up.
Yeah, well, listen, here's what I've made clear is that it took us 40 years with a little bit of reprieve when Mayor Harold Washington was here to get to the condition in which we are in now. And look, I'm not overly critical or judgmental of previous administrations. They made decisions that I disagree with, but what I will say is this: when 3 administrations ago decided to develop downtown using pension dollars, see, people will forget this, that it was the dedicated levy to protect our retirement, which for public sector workers are overwhelmingly black and brown folks, but especially our people. They took the revenue that should have been going towards retirement security, gave it to the 5th floor for the 5th floor to use it as they pleased. They used those dollars to develop downtown, and guess who they stuck with the bill? The brother. So now I gotta pay for what 3 administrations ago did, while also making critical investments because of the crisis that was created when they only put money downtown. Look, I'm not the Messiah. I don't claim to be, but my father was a pastor and a carpenter, as close to Jesus as you possibly can be. And what he would always say is this: he would say that Jesus the Christ said, where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. So my heart is lined up with the people, and our investments will reflect that. And so, yes, is it going to take me 22 more years to get this ship right? Absolutely. And I said ship.
So, Mary, you talked about this is your second best job. Your first best job was your family.
Yeah, definitely.
Family. So, we've got Mayor Johnson has committed to be on the Black family issue of Waymaker. And the subject is running a big city, but making family first. How do you do that and still have your family to be the most important thing to you when you got all these people coming at you, asking you for this, for that,
right,
and all these demands? How do you do that?
Well, look, the joy of my life is still very much connected to having the love of my life and having 3 beautiful, amazing, smart children. And it's something that I do cherish, right? It was a challenge from my father, who only said a few words. He was James Evans's brother. You know what I mean? So, life was tough for my father. It was 10 of us, and the ends didn't always meet. And so my father would say stuff like, turn the lights off, turn the TV down, go to bed, right? That was the extent of it. And, there wasn't a whole lot of affection, but we knew that he loved us. And so showing up for my children is supreme for me. And, what I have is a very strong, dedicated team that recognizes that me being a father and a husband is it's what I'm going to be judged on that great getting up morning. I don't know if our Maker is going to ask, how much did I invest on the west and south side of the city of Chicago? Did you love her the way I love the church? Did you provoke them to wrath? Because that's the commandment, do not provoke them to wrath. And so their activities, I show up for. And you know what actually gives me strength too? My oldest, he's a junior at Kenwood. What's up, Broncos? There's always usually a Bronco in the room. Always. So he's a junior at Kenwood. He's doing exceptional AP government. His teacher thought he should be in that class. I'm like, well, good luck. I don't know who can help you with government, but trigonometry and computer science. But before I ran for office, I don't know if I shared this last year, but he said, before you announce that you're running for office, he was going into his freshman year. He did not want me to announce before he was able to establish himself at Kenwood, because he said, Dad, I want to know who is real in my life. And so, because they have such balanced perspective, my middle child, Ethan, and the baby girl, Braden, showing up for their soccer practices, showing up for their games, playing, trivia with my son for his AP government class. There's a couple of games tomorrow that are scheduled for soccer, and for my oldest, tomorrow morning, and Ethan has a 2:00 baseball game. That's the pride and joy that I have. And it's really just, and I think fathers in here, you all know this. And if you're an uncle, you all know this. The best thing that we can do for our children, our nieces, our nephews, is showing up and just being there. My children really don't necessarily expect or want a bunch of hugs. They don't even want me to get into a deep conversation. They want me to be there. And I know my children are comforted when they know that I'm there.
All right, yeah. I think this year is competing against yourself for growth, which is all about consistently making good decisions. Are there some things that you're still wrestling with, that you're competing against yourself?
Yeah, I am. I think it would be disingenuous to suggest that somehow being a black man and coming up through white supremacy, that you don't still battle with some insecurities. Do you know what the biggest adjustment is? Is that America, the world, is not accustomed to black executive men. I mean, if you think about it historically, there are only a couple of examples. President Obama, right? There are more black mayors, black men mayors, but this is a newer phenomenon. If you think about, post 68 and how black folks essentially, and I just want to make this very clear, we don't give ourselves enough credit for taking over the Democratic Party. Now, look, there are many folks that would argue, what has the Democratic Party done for black folks? I think that's a fair question to ask. But keep in mind, when we were Republicans and when there was a conscious political decision to be a part of the Democratic Party, if you look at what we've been able to accomplish in terms of black leadership, there's more evidence of our ability to take over the Democratic Party than anything that the Republican Party can offer black people. And the reason why I'm elevating that is because, as you asked this question about what's the adjustment, having to go into rooms that my great-great-great-great-grandfather could not go into, even though he owned land in Salis, Mississippi, he would have to send his white subordinates to talk to other white developers and business leaders. His great-great-great-great-grandson now has the power and the ability to pull people into a conversation that would have otherwise been impossible, or otherwise we'd have been ignored. But that room, I'll just say it like this. I can see the discomfort and the awkwardness of people who are having a tough time trying to figure out who is this working class social studies teacher who's had no political ties to the daily operation. For the record, I'm the first mayor since Richard J. Daley to not have ties to the daily operation. Mayor Harold Washington was on Richard J. Daley's slate when he ran for state rep. Every other mayor after Richard J. Daley was tied to the political machine, and then along comes this brother with none of that political history. And so why should corporate, who've been running this city and has run it into the ground, listen to someone that not only do they not know, but nobody sent him? The adjustment is more around them learning to be comfortable with a form of leadership that they're just going to have to get used to. Because this is not just about my Black local leadership. This is about Black leadership in all industries, whether it's technology, whether it's media, whether it's construction. They know Boa Construction is not the last prime construction company to get a contract. They're just the first. You know what the biggest adjustment is? Is knowing that those who want to control it, they know that I now know. And I know a lot more 15 months into this office than I knew when I announced. So it's more about me being secure about the power that we have. And the best way to keep our brothers secure is surrounding myself with more brothers.
Come on now. That is great. We're still dealing with some crime issues. You've put in a new police chief, Larry Snelling, who I hope to see tomorrow. And how do you think he's doing in that job? I heard the head of the CIA said he was the best in the country. All right. Matter of fact, I was eating, I had to look over, like, oh, what did he say? He said, I've never said that about anybody else. How do you think he's doing on a day-to-day basis in the job?
Superintendent Snelling is doing an exceptional job. And what I do appreciate about Superintendent Snelling is that he appreciates my vision for public safety, and I appreciate his expertise. So he allows me to lead, but he also knows that I'm not going to get in the way of his leadership either. And I've said this repeatedly. It's not policing by itself. And the problem has been historically is that we have placed too much emphasis on pressure on policing as the solver of everything that is going on in our neighborhoods. Now, you're right. Homicides are down, you all. My first 2 years in office in 2023, almost 13% were double digits reduction. Shootings are down in every single major category. Shootings, carjacking, robberies, all of it is down. A long way to go, but let me just say this since I'm feeling extra free today. $20 billion of new investment. Homicides are down. 45% of my administration is Black, by the way. 60% women. Homicides, shootings are down. Investments are up. 2 credit score upgrades. How many Black people y'all know who have their credit score improved? That's who you know.
Yeah, well, mine ain't.
I had less melanin.
Yeah.
With that record, billions of dollars of investment, we operationalized an entire crisis that is global in terms of migration shifts. Credit scores are up. My credit score is up. If I had less melanin, they would be talking about this person as if they are the second coming. Yes, sir. Well, I'm not mad that they're not talking about it that way, but as it relates to policing and his leadership, it's another example or reflection of my ability to recognize a brother from Inglewood who is the son of the South Side of Chicago, who is leading a police department that if you are going to say that 1968 is brutality, you have to say 2024 is now true constitutional policing. A Black superintendent and a Black mayor delivered that.
Come on now. What's your credit score? So, and then say,
listen, I need a vehicle. I just want to be able to put it in my name or put it in I know how we do.
Yeah. Final question, because I know you got to go, and I told them, they giving me the sign. Final question. Are we going to get a new Bear Stadium?
So let me just answer the question directly. Yes, we're going to get a new domed Bear Stadium at the lakefront. We are.
Thank you.
I'm glad you asked that because, look, again, it goes back to the standard that people always set for black men. You know, we are more likely than any other group to be there for our children. So don't believe the hype. Black dads are involved.
We're our children.
Now, the relationship aspect, you're going to have to wait to the next panel, I guess. Yo, look, I've been married 26 years. Look, once I found the one, I'm like, I'm good, right? I'm good. But President Kevin Warren, another brother, came to me right after I got elected because he was just brought into this position.
Correct.
And he said, we trust your leadership and we want to keep the Bears in Chicago. And I've talked to the McCaskies. Here's the three things that you all should know. The current location where the Bears are playing, previous administrations negotiated the deal for that stadium. There's $600 million that's owed on the stadium that we can't even use but 12 days out the year. And if it rains, whatever concert or whatever activity that we have in that building, we are subject to the weather in Chicago. So we have a depreciating asset that does not have full public benefit in use. So that's thing one. The second thing is this. There was an entire agreement to create something called ISFA, where you basically create a tax through the hotel tax to actually build stadiums. Guess who came up with the idea to deliver an entire revenue stream for stadiums? It was Mayor here in Washington. So ISFA can only do one thing, which is build stadiums. And I knew I was picking on the White Sox earlier, but just in terms of politically, where the White Sox currently play, that stadium was 100% financed by the public, of which we don't own. Plus, you have a $600 million debt on the current stadium that you're playing in. Here's what our proposal is, that we pay off the $600 million through the investments of the McCaskies, because they've committed $2.3 billion. We would use ISFA, the hotel tax, to pay for the rest of the stadium. So in other words, this stadium is going to be built by billionaires and visitors, while also paying off the debt of the folks who jacked up that deal in the first place. So not only do we solve for the debt, we build a new stadium that would be paid for by billionaires and visitors that the city of Chicago would own. And then, hold on, it gets better, there's more. We're going to build out entire green space around the area for soccer fields, for football fields, for baseball diamonds. We're also going to create this community space where there's opportunities for economic development. And then here's the other part, 43,000 jobs, 24,000 just for Chicagoans, as well as an $8.1 billion of income for those who are actually working. So let me get this straight. The brother is going to fix the deal that the other folks messed up, pay that off with billionaires and visitors, and create open green space in the top tourist location in the state of Illinois, and the city of Chicago would own it. Man, I want to use a word right now. They can kiss my work in the stadium in Chicago. And just it makes sense.
Yeah, well, I'm been Johnson.